Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to you, wherever you're joining us from in the world. Thanks for joining in today. My name is Andy Tobin, and I'll be your host. If you're new to these sessions or new to verifiable credentials and self-sovereign identity, you'll find plenty of previous webinars at evernym.com/webinars. A couple of weeks ago, for example, we had a fascinating session on self-sovereign identity and digital credentials for virtual worlds. And we also recently covered digital credentials for organizations and the 5 safe credential tests as well, which are well worth checking out. Today, we're going to be giving you all the latest inside information on our verifiable credentials platform called Verity. We'll go through all the new developments and we'll give you a sneak peek at the roadmap as well. So joining me today are my colleagues James and Vlad. James, could you do a quick intro for us, please?
Thanks, Andy. It's a pleasure to be here today. I'm James Monaham. I'm the head of product here at Evernym. I'm based in London, and I'm responsible for our overall product strategy and crafting a roadmap which meets the needs of our customers across the portfolio of both consumer and enterprise products.
Excellent. Thank you, James. And Vlad, you're joining us from Serbia.
Thanks, Andy. Yes, my name is Vladimir Vujovic, and I'm a product manager for the enterprise products at Evernym, based in Belgrade, Serbia.
Cool. Thanks very much, guys. So here's our agenda today. We've got a few insights for you about why we created a digital platform in the first place, going back to 2016, will you believe, which is an eternity in the world of digital credentials. Then we'll cover what Verity does and what's new in our latest Verity 2 release. And once we've done that, we'll cover the roadmap, just give you a glimpse of some of the stuff coming up in the near and midterm, and some of the vision for the long term. And we'll also be going through how you can get started yourself as well. So some big developments in that area for you. Just as a quick reminder as well, we record all our webinars and we post them up on evernym.com/webinars. As I said before, some really great content there. So if you're new to this space or just need a refresher, it's really well worth diving in. There's plenty for you there to look at. Also, we usually get loads of questions in these sessions, which is great. The audience is really interactive, so don't feel shy. Please put your questions in the Zoom Q&A. So we've got Zoom chat, which you'll see there's some stuff going on there already. But for the questions, put them in the Zoom Q&A, and Alex behind the scenes will gather those all up, and we'll cover as many of them as possible after the more formal section of the presentation. And I'll be comparing that and getting James and Vlad to answer. So if you've attended some of these previous webinars or got some reading done on digital credentials and self-sovereign identity, you'll know quite a bit of this already. And I'm recognizing people in the attendee list that are coming in that I know I've personally spoken to before, so hi to all of you. We've worked with organizations around the world who have come up with all sorts of amazing use cases. And once they get hold of the technology, they realize the transformational power of issuing, holding, and verifying digital credentials. And something I always recognize is the moment when people truly get it. And what tends to happen is they'll be talking about their specific use case. It might be bank KYC or employee onboarding or something. And they'll talk about that, and we'll go through how it works. And there'll be a point when they kind of look up and they go, so could I also do this with it? And at that point you go, okay, good, you've got it. This is not a one use case technology. You can solve lots and lots of problems with it. So it's a bit like the internet, really, isn't it? Where you're given a few tools around, like TCP/IP and HTML. There's no limit to the number of websites you can create and the services you can build. And the technology that makes digital credentials work is similar in its flexibility. Standards-based protocols like decentralized identifiers and verifiable credentials are the building blocks that allow you to create new services. And one of those services is self-sovereign identity, which you'll have heard a lot about before as well. Self-sovereign identity is a way of using verifiable credentials for identity for people, organizations, and things, but there's many other use cases as well, from supply chain authentication and verification to IoT authentication and so on. And our view at Evernym, and it's shared by an increasing number of people and organizations now, is that just like every organization has a website, every organization will also be willing to issue and hold and verify digital credentials. And this will allow the transformation of previously untransformable business processes and enable entirely new ways of doing things. We think it'll remove so much digital friction that it will be competitive suicide not to be an issuer or verifier of credentials. And just like every business that has a website runs or rents their web server, every business will need a digital credentials platform. So we're talking really about foundational enabling technology here. And that brings me very nicely onto the meat of this webinar. I'll hand over to James in the first instance to take you through Verity, Evernym's digital credentials platform, to give you a bit of history and all the latest. So James, over to you.
Yeah, so cast your mind back to the winter of 2016. This was shortly after I joined the company. We won a contract to develop a proof of concept for one of the UK's major banks. And that project demonstrated how applicable portable digital credentials would be to a handful of use cases that the bank had in mind. And it took quite a deep dive into the technology and proved that it could deliver on the promise of secure and privacy-enhancing user-centric data exchange. But this screenshot that you see before you is what the final demo looked like. It doesn't exactly scream user-friendly now, does it? Believe it or not, between the advanced cryptography, the first use of the public permission sovereign distributed ledger, which is all shiny and new back then, and one of the first outings of these concepts of decentralized identifiers and verifiable credentials. This was all very new and very exciting, that actually both we and the customer were delighted that it worked at all. But I think we all knew that we had quite a long way to go in terms of user experience and developer experience before this would be ready for prime time. Yeah, for this to take off, individuals would need a simple, reliable, and intuitive way to manage their digital credentials. And likewise, developers would need a tool which abstracted away a lot of the underlying crypto and complexity, made the process of issuing or verifying credentials much, much more approachable. So it was just over a year later, early 2018, I think, after several months of private beta testing with a handful of customers, we lifted the curtain on the first version of our Connect.me mobile wallet app for individuals, which you can see on the left of the screen, and also the first version of our Verity Credentials Exchange, or VCX toolkit, for developers. And since then, real end users have been able to interact with digital credentials without having to know or care about blockchains and protocols and private keys, and never having to see one of those terrifying green screens. And similarly, developers have been able to build digital credentials into real-world business applications, complete with user-friendly graphical interfaces, which is much, much more realistic. And we didn't stop there. After realizing and releasing rather that first version, we spent thousands of hours working with well over 100 different organizations. We learned about their needs and their use cases, and we delivered together some amazing proofs of concept and pilot programs. We helped them achieve scale in production, and along the way, the decentralized identity space itself matured a great deal, helped along by the work that we and others put into community standards and open source projects. Hyperledger Indy and Aries have become quite well established by now. There's tens of thousands of code contributions from hundreds of different developers. And Verity itself has matured as well, driven mostly by the insights that we've gained from working with those customers in the trenches and with our community partners. One thing that became clear early on is that while decentralized identity is fascinating, most customers don't actually care about the details. They want to use it, not be building it. And so it was critical that we strive for simplicity in our products, exposing the power but hiding the complexity of all that underlying technology, and letting our customers focus on the unique value that they add up in the application layer at the top. Customers also demanded flexibility. While there are certainly some common use cases which do show up time and time again, no two customers are exactly alike. So we knew we needed to create a tool that could accommodate their diverse needs both now and in the future. When it comes to scale, we're fortunate that we've been present in some of the first real-world production deployments of decentralized identity. We've gone live on our platform, and we've developed both the technical and operational capacity to scale with them as they grow. The majority of our customers are looking for a platform that they can depend on to use portable credentials in their business, they need something they can rely on as they grow. And finally, we've worked really hard to create an open and interoperable ecosystem. And while we're pleased that many significant organizations have chosen to work directly with Evernym, we understand the continuing importance of interoperability, and the lack of vendor lock-in is key part of our promise to customers. So all of that has gone into how we've shaped the roadmap going forward. So while our products have evolved constantly since we first released them, we recently announced a major milestone with the 2.0 release of Verity. To tell us more about what that is and why it's so significant for us, I'll hand over to Vlad, who's led the charge on this very exciting effort. Vlad, over to you.
Thanks, James. All right, so I will tell you more about Verity. Verity is Evernym's platform for running DITCOM protocols, where credential exchange protocols are the most notable. It is intended to serve organizations and companies when those entities are interacting with the end users in the SSI domain. Verity can enable an organization to issue verifiable credentials or to request verifiable data from end users, but it doesn't serve as a wallet app for the end users. If you're interested in wallet applications for end users, we do have a line of products for that as well. So if you're a company or organization looking to build secure and private interactions with end users, or you want to issue or verify digital credentials, then Verity is a product for you. Things your organization can do with Verity can be generally described as establishing secure and end-to-end encrypted channel with the end users, issuing verifiable credentials to end users using that previously established encrypted channel, engaging with end users by exchanging predefined messages over that channel, and requesting and verifying data users have shared with your organization. These four major functionalities can enable your organization to implement various different use cases, from authentication and logging into web apps and IT systems, to FA, remote user onboarding into KYC regulated services, digitizing paper credentials in education, staff access, and also addressing post-COVID use cases and realities. As James said earlier, one of our main goals for Verity 2.0 was to make things easier for our customers. We want our customers to be successful as quickly as possible. Therefore, we are focusing on combination of things. One of those being native language SDKs in 3 popular languages, which are doing most of the message handling for you, and other being RESTful API for those who are preferring a more traditional approach to integrate. Our developer package includes installers and Docker, so that setting up, installing dependencies, and running is done quickly. But having clean and simple APIs was not enough. So we are now providing sample apps that are using either SDK or REST API, but also quite a few how-to guides and tutorials with code snippets. One of our main goals is to have a developer capable of building a prototype relevant for their use case within a day's work without needing some sufficient help from us. Implementing an agent capable of running DITCOM protocols is not an easy task. It's not only that the specs are young, but some of them are also quite complex to implement. We believe that our customers shouldn't have to know all the different message types in DITCOM protocols or when to use specific crypto functions. We believe our customers should be thinking about their use case, while Verity can do this heavy lifting. We've written over 90,000 lines of code in Verity, so we can handle all the different protocol messages and states. But we've written a protocol engine in a way that adding new protocols is done much faster and with less effort than before. That way, we are in a position to answer more quickly to ever-changing community specs or to emerging customer needs. An example of that would be supporting sending connection invites using SMS, unlike very common QR codes, or issuing a credential in one step as opposed to two-step process that the underlying protocol defines. Verity platform has been designed from the ground up for production use. While there are a number of solutions on the market today, Evernym has the longest track record of serving customers in production. Our platform is written in Scala and is using ACA technology, which enable us to scale horizontally. Our focus in the last several months has been very much on building a robust, highly available and scalable platform that will provide our customers with everything they need as they move to production. We also understand that our customers value open standards, value no vendor lock-in, and most importantly, customers want to be able to choose the best components for their stack. Whether you want to use Evernym's Connect.me app or some other vendor's wallet app, or you want to build your own branded app, Verity is ARIES compliant and is interoperable with other ARIES compliant mobile and enterprise agents. Achieving interop with a young technology where some of the standards are yet to be defined is difficult, but we are committed to that goal along with our community partners. And what's the goal of all of this? To make building credential-based solutions easier than ever with the right mix of technology and support. We are proud to say that the response to Verity 2 has been very much positive, and we have some even bigger improvements coming up. By the end of the year, we plan on supporting one of the most requested features, images in credentials. We will also be able to support Verity deployment in a dedicated and private cloud environment. For the beginning of next year, we plan on adding credential revocation functionality. This is what we internally call as the new revocation with advanced crypto features. And we plan on offering components further up the stack, such as ready-to-be-used issuer and verifier web apps that our customers can instantly use with no or very little modifications in pilot or production. So to summarize what we've said, Verity is the most advanced platform for credential exchange on the market today. We've spent hours and hours making Verity easy to work with by providing various integration options, tutorials, and example apps. But more important, we've designed Verity for production use and to scale to millions of transactions. Few of our customers are already in the production, and others are increasingly preparing to move to production in the near future. With Verity, we want to provide them the assurance they'll need as they make that important next step. Here, I'm going to be giving back to James to tell us more about interesting projects our customers are doing with this tech. But before I do this, I'll spend just a few minutes showing you a quick demo of what Verity can do. I'll be showing you a demo web app that uses Verity, and this demo web app comes with our developer package as a kind of standard thing. So give me just a minute to set everything up on my end. All right, so you should be able to see my screen. So what I'll be doing now, I'll be running a Docker run command that is going to start this demo web app locally in my Docker container. All right, and when I start the demo app, this is what I'm going to get. This is the demo web app that's running locally. This demo web app is using Verity and represents either an issuer or a verifier. So it's representing a company or organization who wants to interact with the end user and wants to either issue credentials or to request and verify data from the end user. And there are certain functions that you can exercise using this web app. For example, you can, you can register yourself, your company as an issuer. You can create certain, schemas or write certain schemas and credential definitions onto the ledger. But also there are some functions that actually exercise interactions with the end user. So I have already created some of the schemas and credential definitions. So I'll be demonstrating how an end user using a Connect.me application is connecting with this demo app, and how this demo app is issuing a basic credential, containing first name, last name, and the date of birth. All right, so I'll be also mirroring my screen from my phone.
It's a lot easier than that 2016 demo we showed, right, Vlad?
Oh yeah, much more. All right, so I'm going to be creating another connection with Vlad, myself, and now I'm getting the QR code. This QR code contains the connection invites, all the information that I as a user needs to be able to connect with this organization that's behind this web app. So now, scanning this, you should be able to see that. I have a request for connecting. I'm clicking yes, and now I have a connection with this entity. Also, what's important here is that here you can see all the messages that are being going back and forth between this demo web app and the Verity in the background, and that some of that you can also see here in the console as well. So once I do have the connection, the next step would be to actually issue a credential. So I'll be issuing a credential called personal info. I'll be selecting one of the DIDs or one of the connections I have created. So I'll be using the last one, which is the one that I just created. I'll be using one of the previously created credential definitions, this one, and I'll be filling it. And here I need to just fill in the credential values, which I'm going to be doing. I already have prepared some of them here. All right, so now I'm ready to actually issue a credential. All right, and once I refresh, I do have a pop-up here, notification that I do have a new message, and just here, just so you can see it, I do have first name, last name, my date of birth. Once I click accept, the credential is going to be issued. Right.
Presumably, Vlad, this sample web app, anyone can build any front end they want to on top of it, right?
Yes.
This is what we've just done is say, here's the code you can use to create something like this, but you can build anything, presumably.
Yes, you basically can, because as I said at the very beginning, this sample web app is part of our developer package, call it that way. So you can take that. There's a source code available there. You can modify that. You can put a different UI on top of it. You can use some of the functions and remove the others and so on. So yeah, that can be used for that. All right, that's what I wanted to share. Back to you, James, if you don't mind.
That's my pleasure. You can breathe a sigh of relief. Live demo is always exhilarating. But,
yeah.
Quite well. Very good. Okay, right. Well, yeah, I'm just going to spend a few minutes talking about some of the work that our customers are doing using Verity. So the first one I want to talk about is IATA. IATA, I think, as many of you know, is a trade body that works with all major airlines around the world. And they have a large initiative to digitize passport data and allow it to be securely exchanged in order to enable contactless travel for the entire airline industry. I used to be a frequent traveler before the pandemic, both for work and for leisure, and certainly would welcome a more effortless journey through the airport. But actually, increasingly, airports are having to handle more data from different sources, and are reluctant to be physically handling paper documents and so forth. And so providing this digital infrastructure is really important. What the team at IATA are doing is shipping a mobile app which will allow a passenger to obtain a digital version of their passport. And if you go to the next slide, you'll see they will be given the option as part of their travel journey to be able to share those passport details with participating airlines, with systems inside the airport, or with border control authorities. And for those of you who've attended our previous webinars about how safe credentials work, you know that allows the relying party to verify the source and the integrity of that data while preserving the individual's privacy. So that's a really powerful capability. And then for the passenger, this means they can travel effortlessly through the airport without needing to produce paper documents like a passport or a boarding pass, which should be critical to safely reopening travel corridors around the world, which is really exciting. The other example I'll spotlight just briefly is a project that we actually spoke about last year, but I think it's still highly relevant given the current attention around digital identity, particularly here in the UK. We worked with Deloitte and also with Onfido to do a pilot inside the UK's FCA regulatory sandbox to demonstrate how customers could obtain a reusable portable credential for their digital identity that was provided by Onfido, verified their government-issued ID document, and allowed them to store that securely on their phone. So that then in one tap, it could be shared as part of the account opening process with a handful of participating financial institutions. This was really exciting because, number one, it delivered a much smoother and more comfortable user experience than the process of having to repeatedly verify yourself every time you apply for a new product. But also by engaging with the regulator, we're able to show how the use of digital evidence for these transactions is eminently compatible with the prevailing regulations here in the UK. And we think that's very important to be able to unlock adoption of this. And so that was quite an exciting pilot, which we're certainly hoping to scale further in the coming months.
Very cool. Thank you, James. It's always nice to see sort of the real stuff happening behind the scenes, but also, as James explained earlier, it's about people kind of taking the business process that they want to automate or simplify or speed up, and actually making that work without having to worry about all the deep technology under the skin. And that's the whole intention behind it all. Verity, when we first started with this, it was really unique, quite exotic. And as things have moved on over the last few years, we think that, like web servers, you're going to be able to just pick up a digital credential exchange platform and just use it just like that. And that's certainly the intent that we have. To make that really easy for people, we've set up what we call a sandbox capability, a sandbox plan, for people who just want to understand how this stuff works, get their hands on exactly what Vlad did, build their own web apps on top of it, understand the sequencing and the protocols and so on, but just get stuff done really quickly. So the sandbox plan is free to use. We've had, since we released it just under a couple of months ago, over 150 signups already. There's like another 10 or 15 today, I think. And it lets you get started when you're ready and you want to move into production or commercial use, or you want extra support from us. Then we offer premium plans for as low as $1,000 a month. So it's credit card spend. Let's not get the procurement guys too upset, but let you get started as quickly as possible. So that's a sandbox plan. You can have a look at it on evernym.com/sandbox. Really easy to jump in, and you'll get API keys for exactly what Vlad was showing you there. And you'll get into our customer portal, and you can see the repos and the documentation, etc., etc. So that's proving really popular at the moment, and it's only really possible because of the excellent feedback we've had from customers around the world who've been trying things and trying Verity 1 and going, oh, hang on a minute, how does this work, and can't you do that, and why can't I have this, and so on. And we take all that that input, and that's, you know, it's actually you guys that have been helping us to build Verity too. So thank you very much for doing that. Also, if there's developers out in the audience, which I'm sure there are quite a few of you, there's a really cool hackathon coming up on the 21st and 22nd of September. This is a goodie because it's organized by Interopen, and it's basically supported by the UK National Health Service, which, if you didn't know, is I think the 4th or 5th largest employer in the world. And their focus is around staff access, so onboarding new members of staff, checking their identity, checking their credentials, enabling staff, once they have been onboarded to a particular hospital, to be able to move easily to other hospitals. It's something we saw a lot of demand for as the COVID peak was hitting in the UK, doctors having to go from here to there really urgently, and it taking 24, 48 hours to check a doctor's documentation, and you want to do it in 10 seconds. So we've been working with the NHS for nearly 4 years now, I think. And kudos to the team at NHS Digital and NHSX and Blackpool Teaching Hospital. They've really grabbed onto this digital credentials approach and really taken it forward and driven it inside the NHS to the point at which it's in the 2021 people plan for the whole NHS. So it's super cool, and there's going to be some really good use cases that they're going to be working on around volunteers, around onboarding doctors, and around system access for doctors who have been already onboarded, doctors and other staff. They're going to have something like 13 or 15 different credential schemas all set up. They've got use cases, they've got flow diagrams. We're going to be providing Verity under the skin. So it's going to be pretty epic, actually. Of course, it's a virtual hackathon, but that's great because you can join from anywhere you are in the world. So it's a 2-day job. I believe there are prizes. So come along and join that one. If you have a look at evernym.com/NHS hackathon, you will see how to register for that, and you'll see all the developer resources we're making available, including the stuff that Vlad just talked you through as well. And yeah, basically, we can't wait to see what you build either as part of the hackathon or just with Verity itself. We're already seeing some very, very cool stuff being created. So basically, here's a bunch of tools, off you go, fill your boots, as we say in the UK. Now, without further ado, we've had some questions, which is excellent. I always love this bit because we just get flooded with some really cool questions coming in. Oh, look at those as well. Right, and in the background, Alex has been busy collating these. So I've got another document over here. I'm just going to have a look, see. So I'll tell you what I'll do, guys. I'll just stop sharing my screen, and then everyone can see it in all our glory. And let's just have a look at some of the questions we've got. Right, so James, we'll come to you first on this one. What's the difference between building on Verity and something like Akapi? Now, a lot of people may not understand what Akapi is, so maybe you could help them out on that one. But there will be people who obviously do know what it is because they've asked the question.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, Akapi is an open source project that provides a Python toolkit for building cloud agents that speak the Hyperledger Aries protocols, and it's been actively developed by the community for a couple of years now, and it's a really good piece of software. It's actually probably how a lot of people first get exposed to the Hyperledger Aries project. It does require you to be quite intimately acquainted with the protocols themselves. So I would kind of describe it more for people that are interested in building identity infrastructure rather than people that are wanting to build applications. But it's a good starting point. The approach we took with Verity was very much to focus on enabling that application layer and providing the scale and kind of the dependability underneath. And so the architecture we've chosen is really designed to be much more scalable than the Python that you would get inside using Akapi. And of course, unlike a pure open source project, when you get this Verity product from Evernym, you also get enterprise grade hosting and support from our team of experts many of whom are the same individuals that wrote the standards and contributed to the open source projects. So you're getting more than just the software, but you're getting that whole support as well. So I think that's probably the biggest contrast, since the question was about what's the difference.
So like applies like it's at a lower level. Verity is abstracting a lot of the sort of minutiae of the protocols. Then would that be about right?
Yeah, I think that's right. I think they're both good choices, but they're for people with different needs.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. Thank you. Next one, Vlad, coming to you for this one. The blog post from a couple of weeks ago mentioned 50 new features in this version. Can you give us some examples? Probably not list all 50 because we might be here for a while.
Yeah. So, you know, when we say like 50 new features, they do vary from the very major and like, you know, visible to the outside and also to the fairly minor. The REST API is an example of a major new feature, which was, you know, requested by you know, many customers. Also, Docker containers we added for easy installation. It's also, you know, one of those examples. We also provide many example application and example web apps. You know, those are kind of the features, but we also want those to be used as a learning tool for our customers, but also as a tool that, you know, our customers can use to build their own you know, prototypes and POCs using that. But besides that, you know, we have simplified some of the API calls by, you know, before, in order to issue a credential, you had to basically do that in 2 steps. And you had to monitor for a message in between that comes from the end user requesting a credential. Now all of that is simplified because an issuer can just like you know, fire and forget basically. We are also adding the out-of-band protocol. That's quite a new protocol in the Aries community. But also there are like many other, you know, internal operational features that are not visible to the outside world, but are very important for the stability of the product.
Okay, so can you tell us a bit more about the out-of-band protocol? What is that? What does that mean?
Yeah, so the out-of-band protocol is the protocol that will, I'm going to say replace, but the intention is to somehow replace the connecting protocol that's currently predominant in the Aries community. So the out-of-band protocol defines how you can you know, create and establish a relationship with the end user using some out-of-band manner. You know, mostly it's a, you know, it can be a QR code, it can be an SMS, it can be a, you know, deep link, short link, something like that. And the difference between the connecting protocol and the out-of-band protocol is that the out-of-band protocol allows you to define, you know, why are you making this interaction? It allows you to define the reason why are you, you know, doing that interaction. So like you can put in there something like, you know, I want to issue a credential, or you know, you want to log into a website, or those kind of things. So that reason and can be displayed to a user, so it can provide more context why a user is
right. So it's not just I'm requesting approved. You can say I'm requesting approved to check you're over 18 to buy this.
Correct.
Bottle of whiskey or whatever. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So it's adding context to the actual transaction, which is really useful.
Yeah, I just want to add, so it is great to go into the details of the specific new features, but I'm guessing we probably have a few attendees who might have used the earlier version of Verity, and I guess if you're thinking about coming back and getting engaged with Verity 2, I think it's probably worth highlighting that the biggest difference, which is that, you know, Verity 1 really was just a toolkit for developers. It was a library, basically, quite a sophisticated one, but just a library. Whereas Verity 2 is an actual server. I mean, it manages state, it orchestrates your messages, and it's something that you connect to with a much more lightweight library in your client application. And so there was a lot of heavy lifting required in the early days of getting to grips with this technology. And so if you played around with it a couple of years ago, I would definitely say it's worth re-engaging and seeing how much progress has been made, because there is quite a difference.
Well, thanks, James. Oh, somebody, John Nugent, I'll just pick up this one straight away. Would Verity sit comfortably with the Oracle or Adobe marketing clouds? Well,
yeah, I see no reason why not. You know, we currently at the moment we support a limited number of cloud environments to actually run it on. You know, we offer it as on a software as a service basis, as Vlad mentioned earlier. But we plan to support deployment on customers' private cloud infrastructure in the not too distant future. So certainly running it elsewhere is possible, but most people aren't interested in running it somewhere else. They just want to know what can they connect it to. And yeah, I mean, the REST API is the whole reason we created that, is to make it easy to connect from a whole bunch of other different pieces of cloud infrastructure without having to write code, particularly because almost any platform is able to craft a REST call and send that over the airwaves. So I suspect it'll be fine.
Well, actually, more news on this to come in the near future, but one of the world's biggest ERP, enterprise resource planning platforms, has showed us recently an integration of Verity into their ERP platform, their cloud ERP platform. And it was just super cool because it was just included in the drop downs. You know, do you want to print this or do you want to get it as a credential? Oh, so you know, all of the complexity is just abstracted away. It's like having another printer there, you know. So more news to come on that in a bit. James, I'm going to come back to you again. James Bukundu asks, are biometrics considered verifiable credentials? Now,
that's a great question. So yes, but I think it's important to treat biometrics as quite a special case for verifiable credentials. You know, most credentials you might want to disclose some attributes of verbatim, or perhaps just prove the existence of when you're sharing information. So you're logging in or filling in a form or something like that. But for privacy reasons, you're unlikely to want to share your unique biometric footprint with relying parties, because that would actually undo a lot of the anti-correlation protections that are built in to Hyperledger Indy and the whole sort of safe credentials ethos that we've built into the product. So you could have a credential that was, you know, a biometric template, but what you wouldn't do is then just turn around and share that with some relying party. Instead, what you'd use is a remote kind of third-party biometric service provider to issue a credential that proves that you, the individual, are still the same person that a given credential was issued to. So if I'm providing some attributes from my driver's license, like my date of birth, for example, you might also want to have an up-to-date proof that I look like the photo on the driver's license. And I would want to do that without necessarily sharing that unique biometric signature with you. And so that's the nature actually of the relationship that we've got with iProve. We've partnered with them to bring their genuine presence technology into the decentralized identity ecosystem, and that's part of what we'll be working on in the fourth quarter this year. And more generally, there's a pattern and a Hyperledger Aries RFC actually called the Biometric Service Provider, which seeks to generalize how that flow would work. And so we're doing some work on that and with our community partners as well.
Yeah, so that's you know, really when you're getting into those high assurance cases, isn't it? And you really need that match of the physical person and their credentials.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people, I think rightly, are content to make do with on-device biometrics for now. You know, so you can verify that the wallet is only being unlocked by the natural holder of the phone, and that's, you know, that's how we log into all the other important apps on our device.
Yeah, that's true.
I think that's reasonable. But, you know, we have seen other vendors, for example, touting how you can port a wallet from one app to another and things like that. And frankly, we think that's a bit risky without actually having further biometric assurance that the holder of that credential is the right individual, because otherwise you've made the identity equivalent of a credit card copying machine. And that's something which I think will hold back adoption for production use cases unless there's a strong answer to it. So, you know, we're really committed to making sure that across our products, we've got truly best of breed privacy, but also security features.
Yeah, in fact, we've been through quite a lot of grilling from the sort of security and information policy folks at a whole range of organizations, haven't we? Where that sort of thing comes up. Excuse me. Okay, so Vlad, one for you now. I heard you can do more than just exchange credentials. So you showed like issuing a credential and so on, but can you give us a bit more on things you can do with Verity other than just credential exchange? But what else can you do with Verity?
Yeah, currently there are, let's say, additional protocols supported. One of them being committed answer. So committed answer is a protocol where you as a company or organization, you can send a message with a question to the end user with a predefined list of answers, and requesting a user to answer one of those questions. So and the use case for that can be quite broad. So for example, you can ask a user to accept some terms and conditions, or you can ask a user to reply on a multiple choice question. You can use that for a 2FA case, for a 2FA use case, for example. And getting the response back from the user to the Verity server is authenticated and signed, so that response came from exactly that user. So that's one of the things and one of the features that's actively being used by one of our customers in production. And it's also quite neat because it's in a sense a bit lighter protocol than sharing a credential, so sharing a proof. And that way it kind of performs faster. Besides that one, there's also like an additional feature that we are using our connecting protocol to do, and that's doing the authentication. So if you want to implement the authentication on a website or something like that, you can use the connecting protocol and one of the features called connection reuse to actually identify a returning user coming into your website, and then you can do the actual logging in flow. So those
are that was something we saw a lot of feedback on, wasn't it? Was how do you don't have to establish a new connection every time. If it's somebody that's already connected, it should just know and that's correct. It. You don't need to log in, but just by dint of the fact that the other end possesses a private key that they're signing the message with.
Correct. And the user experience for that is also something that is that makes that feature attractive, because the user doesn't have to type the username, doesn't have to type the the passwords. It just needs to scan that QR code again, or clicks on a dip link again, and it will do the magic in the background and log in the user.
Cool. So so on top of the credential exchange, you've got the ability to essentially authenticate an existing user and also do a secure communication and get what you call committed answer back, which is a signed message saying, so it'd be great in our NHS use case. Maybe some of you coming on the hackathon, the NHS really want to replace pagers. I think they're the world's biggest pager user. And wouldn't it be great to use the committed answer protocol for doing that? James, thanks, Vlad. Coming to you next, James. Ed Eckholtz has been pretty prolific on the question answering, Ed, so thanks for that, the question asking. One of the hardest challenges in the SSI ecosystem is establishing trust by the verifiers in the issuers. Good point. Can you describe generally how you see this trust infrastructure improving? Does Verity have any features that help that? So James, nice one for you there.
Yeah, definitely. That's a good question. So, at the moment, a verifier needs to know the DID of the issuers that they're willing to trust. And they can either express that as part of the proof request they send when they're requesting attributes and say, I will only accept attributes from these issuers. Or they can simply look at what the identity owner sends back and make a decision at that point. And that works fine, but it's obviously not super scalable. And having to maintain a list of these DIDs is something which is going to be different on an ecosystem by ecosystem basis. And so tackling that problem, you've got the tools for technical trust, but how do you have trust over the governance and actually kind of reliance on that data? It's the other side of the coin. And Drummond Reed, our chief trust officer, has a wonderful slide that really makes this point with a picture of a coin in the middle. And so, you know, that's really the nature of our work with the Trust Over IP Foundation, is to actually codify the other side of the stack, and how you can programmatically discover membership of a trust framework, and impart that meaning into the attributes that you're verifying. And that's really the only way this is going to scale to ecosystem level. So we're quite heavily engaged there. In the meantime, though, the short answer is yes. In Verity 2 and in Connect.me, we do plan to add the ability for customers to sort of import lists of the DIDs that are sort of part of their natural trust framework, or their ecosystem, as it were. So pointed at what we call a trust registry, basically. And that will allow the sort of classic green checkmark behavior that people are familiar with from browsers and things like that. But you know, we're very eager that we don't be perceived as you know, as policing what you can and can't do on open networks like Sovereign, because the whole point is that you know, who you trust means something different for every different use case, and we've been committed to making sure this infrastructure is open and available for everyone to use. So it's been a bit of a balancing act, but I think between those short-term features, which will be out before the end of the year, and the longer-term work that the Trust Over IP Foundation is doing, I think we'll get somewhere pretty solid.
Yeah, cool. Thanks, James. It's been really interesting, actually, on some of the production rollouts we've been doing, that the technology is like a overall smaller proportion of the overall project to deliver than all of the kind of administrative side and user training and setting up the rules like the ones you describe, and the policies and so on, which is great. That's how it should be. You know, the tech should just be implement it and do that as quickly and simply as possible. So Vlad, coming to you next, Jordan Jenkins. Hi, Jordan. I think this relates back to the demo, Vlad. Is this a sequence of steps? Connections must be made before issuing credentials. So you talked about some protocols and so on.
Yeah, so current protocols define that there needs to be a permanent connection before you can pass on the credentials through that channel. That permanent connection, what it does, it actually exchanges the public keys between the two parties, so that everything that goes afterwards is encrypted and secure. And that is the current default behavior. However, you know, this kind of concept of, you know, connecting before actually doing something is a bit strange to a lot of, let's say, real world scenarios. So for that reason, you know, the community has come up with some, you know, areas, RFCs that are defining sharing of data without actually establishing a connection. You know, one of those features called like ephemeral proofs, and that would allow you to actually you know, set up a, you know, kind of a temporary connection for this particular exchange of data, and wouldn't be used afterwards. The outer band invitation is also something that you know, goes along those lines, and that's something that we are planning on adding in Verity in the near future.
Cool, thank you, Vlad. We've got loads of questions still. I think we'll probably do, and loads of people staying on, so that's great. Thank you for holding on and sticking with us here, listening into these, and asking more questions as well. It's really cool. We'll probably go just to 10 minutes past the hour, seeing as I want to give everyone a chance if possible, but we won't cover everything. James, here's one for you from Vinod Panikar. Can Verity be set up on-premise independent of Sovereign?
So I think that's probably a two-part question, or maybe not. I'll just unpack it anyway. So can it be set up on-premise? So at the moment, Verity is sufficiently dependent on the particular infrastructure that we've put in place to support its scaling, that you know, for now, we're really only the only team that can operate it. So today we offer it on a, you know, hosted by Evernym software as a service basis. And as Vlad mentioned, in the coming months, we plan to expand that to support private cloud deployment on other cloud infrastructure that customers might have. So in that scenario, you know, we'd make it available and support it, and then hand over operational control to our customers. clearly it's just a piece of software. So if we produce the right manuals and the right training documents, it would be technically possible for customers to take this and install and run it themselves. But really at the moment, our focus is on the value proposition, which is that operating and scaling and evolving this infrastructure is really quite a specialized concern, and the type of customers we're most excited to work with are those who are building at the application layer. So we plan to provide most of the value at that level. However, we do have some relationships where there are particular requirements, be it around security or regulations, where true on-premise might well be the right long-term solution for them. And it's a conversation we're willing to have. I just think it's probably not going to be the solution that makes sense for most people. So I guess that's what I would say about the on-premise topic. As for the question of can it work independent of sovereign, the answer is yes. Verity can work, in fact, all of Evernym's products can work with any Hyperledger Indy-based network and any other agents out there that can speak the Hyperledger Aries protocols. So it could easily work with any private Indy network, just like it works with the many different sovereign networks, the mainnet, the staging net, developer net, etc., and all the internal networks Evernym runs for its own development purposes. So that's eminently possible.
Cool, thanks, James. And actually, on the point of scale, there's a question from no name given on this one, Anon, which is fine actually, because we do respect
privacy preserving. I respect that. Yeah, exactly.
How does Verity scale from the point of view of components? Are you using a container-based platform like Kubernetes? Cover that one, James?
Yeah, good one. Yeah. So yeah, we do use containers as part of the deployment infrastructure, but actually where the scaling takes place is at the akka cluster layer itself. And so what we deploy is a pool of nodes, essentially, and on those nodes run the individual, what akka calls actors, which are the bits of software that represent the individual agents, right? So an agent, as anyone learned in the Hyperledger Aries architecture will know, is kind of the bit of software that's responsible for responding to a particular message and kind of manifesting your decentralized identity to the rest of the Aries enabled world. And so the Verity application server provides as a logical entity, provides a cluster of those nodes, and you as a user don't have to be worried about how many nodes are running, which particular node is my agent associated with any of that. That's all handled for you in that layer.
Cool. And just very, very quickly then, does Verity 2 support JSON LD credentials? That's from Loop, which I think is Laurent. Hey, Laurent, good to chat to you.
Good one. Do you want me to take that one as well?
Sure. Yeah, just quickly, and then we'll go to next.
Whiz through them. Yeah, so the answer is not yet, but we're tantalizingly close. Those who tuned into the Safe Credentials webinar will know there is some specific advantages to using the Hyperledger Indy style credentials, the Kamenisch, Lichtenskaya signature scheme in particular, that frankly we're passionately committed to, and our customers have told us are really important to them when it comes to ensuring really strong guarantees around selective disclosure and non-correlation. But the broader family of signature suites that the W3C specification embraces, and the use of JSON LD for that format is absolutely where the industry is going, and we recognize that. And so there's work happening in the Hyperledger Indy layer and also in our own product suite to embrace those other formats in there. And so our goal, absolutely, as part of our interoperability effort, is to make it fairly seamless. It won't matter what type of credential you've got, just like it won't matter which ledger that credential was anchored on. And so that's very much the long-term vision for the product. But if the question is, do we support it literally today? The answer is no, not yet, but we are working on it.
Got it, thank you. Vlad, coming to you next. We'll just do this question and one more to finish off. I'd like to hear about Aries interoperability protocol and traction on multiple vendor compliance thus far. So you put up an interop slide. Do you just want to talk a bit more about that?
Yeah. So currently the what the community has been using as kind of an interop standard is the Aries interop profile version 1, and that interop profile defines a set of areas RFCs that different community members need to respect in order to be interoperable, in order to work. So currently, the main kind of protocols or the main features that are part of that profile is, of course, connecting, issuing, proving, as the basic features. But there are also some others that are that have made their way into the profile, such as ephemeral proofs, which I was speaking earlier on. Currently, we are, as we said in the presentation, we are very committed to making our products interoperable, and we are doing the interop testing with the other vendors. We are doing that with our Verity product, but we are also doing that with our with our Connect.me, which is the wallet app for the end user.
Good. So, yeah, I mean, this is a key thing, isn't it? Is interop. And the internet wouldn't have got anywhere if it was just AOL, right? So having interoperability across the suppliers is key. So thanks for that, Vlad. There's a couple of really detailed technical questions. We're not going to have time to go into the answers now about the actual walkthrough of all of the sequence of transactions that take place in the protocol. So Mahesh, we probably can't cover that one today, but we'll see if we can get back to you on that. James, maybe one last one. Actually, it's not so much Verity related here, but it's from John Nugent, who says, what are your plans for growth and funding? Do you feel like a unicorn? Do you feel like a unicorn today, James?
Do I feel like a unicorn? I think we're all unicorns. We're all beautiful, unique snowflakes. Gosh. So our plans for growth. Well, basically, we're going to continue trying to make Verity as easy to use and as powerful as we possibly can. Basically, I mean, we're a startup, so we do raise money from investors from time to time. But the key to our long-term success is solving a real and valuable problem in the market. And so it's been an amazing journey these last 4 years, working with some really incredible companies and helping them solve problems and demonstrate their ideas. And obviously we're thrilled to have a number of those now live in production, solving real world problems for their end users, which is great. We're just going to do everything we can to get more of those, basically. I think the overall message is that this technology is new and is evolving quickly. There's no doubt about that. But what we've been able to do with Verity is kind of create an infrastructure layer that hides most of that community complexity, most of the flux around the standards, most of the open source products that are out there, and give people some actual tools they can just build on and actually implement a use case. And so growth really comes down to people just picking a use case that makes sense for them and going ahead and deploying it, really. And so I definitely would say, jump on in, the water's warm. It's definitely time to get involved.
Very cool. Okay. Thanks very much, James and Vlad. And all the people who asked questions, we got a pile of them. And there's a bunch we couldn't get to, unfortunately, but we'll cover as many of those offline as we can. Thank you very much all for attending. Just as a quick reminder, next big event is this NHS Hackathon, 21st and 22nd of September. Developers, dive in, go and show the NHS what you can do. You couldn't have a better platform to demonstrate your capabilities than that. The registration is actually on the Interopen website, but if you go to that URL that's on the screen now, it links through to the Interopen website, so you can go and have a look at that. A bunch of resources there for you as well. And we'll be providing all the hackers with keys to get into the API sets and the SDK that Vlad showed you. So that's the big next thing coming up. Thanks everyone for joining as usual. James and Vlad, thanks again. And we look forward to seeing you on our next webinar. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Thanks very much. Bye now.
Bye.